let's talk a little bit more about get back into hip hop, because that's one of the places that I know you the most from, and I think it's it's something that's always going to be near and dear to your heart. It's a big, it's a way of life. It really is, and so hip hop has made some changes in the past 20 years, really. Like, when you grow up listening to hip hop in the 90s, you kind of look at it a certain way, and then the 2000s it kind of made a shift, and then in the 2010s to 2020 it made like another shift. And every like I'll probably say I'm an old head, right? And the young guys will be like, oh, you don't understand like what we're doing now.
Yeah.
How do you feel, or what do you feel is how do you feel about the current state of hip hop?
It's complicated because well, first of all, the term hip hop is a very muddy term.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about hip hop, first of all, you have to sort out the definition with the person you're talking with before you can even go further, right?
Okay.
Because some people, when they think of hip hop, I don't know what they picture, but they
Right.
probably picture like guns shooting and jewelry and some guy with a rainbow colored hair, I don't know,
Right.
snitching on people. Then other people, like, you could call it old school, you could call it whatever you want, but the true definition of hip hop, the actual culture of hip hop is a culture that came from nothing. It's making something out of nothing for people that were poor in the inner city.
Mm-hmm.
That's what hip hop culture is.
Right.
So when I talk about what hip hop is, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay.
So as far as hip hop culture has never been stronger, never been more global. And like, when I hear people complain about the state of hip hop, that just tells me that their antennas are tuned into the wrong things.
Okay.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there is a lot of whack mainstream hip hop, mainstream rap. People think you're hating on it, but it's just 99.9% trash. It's terrible. And that's not hating on, that's not throwing shade, hating, whatever. It's just how I see it. But that doesn't change the fact that you don't have to, if you don't like a show that's on TV, you don't have to tune into it and go, I don't agree with how TV is now. You're watching it.
Right.
Like, you could turn the TV off. And we have, like, the way things are now with the internet, YouTube, SoundCloud, whatever you want to call it, like all these, you could find any music you want to find. If you like real hip hop, find real hip hop, whatever that is to you.
Right.
So I think hip hop's never been better. Breakdancing, b-boying is in the Olympics now. So hip hop's come a long way, and I used to be one of those people that kind of like talk shit about the state of hip hop, but I kind of come to that realization that I just talked about a minute ago. Like, it's up to me, like what I tune into.
Definitely.
Yeah, change the channel. Like, you don't have to pay attention to stuff that's garbage if it's not for you.
Did you notice a shift? Me being, in the early 90s, going to high school here in Compton and being kind of a product of, like, I guess, gangster rap.
Yeah.
Because if you rewind a little bit earlier than that, hip hop was a house party. It was fun. It was originally it was, higher infinite power heals our people, right?
Yeah.
So it was empowering. Like you said, it was something that had nothing. It was something to give a voice to the street, right? And there was so much positive hip hop, whether it was Pan-Africanism or whether it was just like a voice for people that didn't have a voice, for the disenfranchised, if you will. And then it seemed like in the early 90s, there was a shift from where you stopped hearing the young MCs, you stopped hearing KRS-One on the level that is, so like we're saying, like how are they feeding us hip hop?
Yeah.
And then you started to see the NWAs come in, and then you started to see like all this like destructive rap. And now some people might say that there was some type of conspiracy in that shift to promote this negative aspect of hip hop for whatever purposes, maybe to destroy people as opposed to build people. Do you subscribe to that, or have you thought about that?
I don't mind getting called a conspiracy theorist. I've been called a conspiracy theorist. It's an ignorant term, honestly. So call it a conspiracy, call it whatever you want. But like, yeah, that's a good pinpoint, kind of like our general, like in the early 90s, corporate interest in rap became huge. It became like the ultimate moneymaker for the music machine. So I think there's a lot of mental warfare that gets like Guru, the late great Guru from Gangstar used to talk about this. If you're someone in a position of power to put somebody on a pedestal that's going to be a bad influence to millions of people that you want to keep held down, you could do that. You could put somebody that's preaching ignorance in that spot, and you might be paying that guy $1 million, but you're successfully in your eyes holding down these people by teaching them that, like, okay, if you make some money, get tons of like pointless jewelry, throw a bunch of stuff on your car, act like a fool, drive drunk, like just all this stuff that's gonna get you. Yeah, it's gonna be self-destructive, right? And that's kind of what I think they were doing. They wanted to hold down the black community, mainly the black community. They wanted to keep, because there is a fear of intelligent minorities coming up a little bit. Like, they don't want to see that. So I think that they can easily put intelligent black MCs or Latino MCs in those positions, but that would just empower too many minorities. They don't want that.
Plus the prisons might be a little emptier.
Yeah,
that's big business too.
Call it a conspiracy, call it what you want. That's just what I think it is.
Yeah.
I think they do have an agenda, and but I think that overall, in the end, I like to believe that like the good side prevails. So it is what it is. If people can't at some point realize that they've been fooled and sold a wolf ticket on all this stuff, then that's a tragedy, honestly. Like, if you can't at some point realize, wait, oh, I've been sold on some bullshit for all these years. If you can't realize that, then that's sad.
Well, you know, they say it's easier to fool people than convince them they've been fooled.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just, I think it's it's conversations like this that more people need to have to say, all right, let's look deeper into this and what's really going on, and why are these artists, you don't hear about them, but when you hear their music and you hear how empowering it is, you're not hearing those guys, and then you're hearing this guy who's giving this like total wrong message. And anybody who has kids are like, do I want my kid listening to that, really? But but you see it getting pumped through the radio stations and through media. You're like, oh, something's not right here. Like, if they really care.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that gangster rap or anything, like, there's a place for everything. Honestly, there's a time and a place for every type of emotion, or like if you have something that you're pissed about, and the only way you could express it is just by like making a song where it's like really aggressive and this and cussing someone out, then if that's what helps you release that, then do that. But it's not. That's not what. I don't think that's what it is 90% of the time. It is an agenda, I think, but
we'll let people decide on their own. But I have to agree with you on that. There's something fishy going on, and you got to be a critical thinker, man. So one aspect of hip hop, so we got the b-boy, we got the graffiti tagging, and we have MCing. As a connoisseur and as an MC yourself, what would you put on your, if you have 5 faces on your Mount Rushmore of MCs, what would they be? Right?
The top MCs list is something I've never been able to do. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's impossible. Like, I know what people want to hear when they ask that question. Right. It could be any. You'll hear a lot of names come up over and over, and you're supposed to say them.
I've asked this question, and I've heard names I don't even know.
Yeah.
But this is great, because it's like, then I can go Google that person and be like, yo, whoa, all right, okay, all right. So it could be a learning experience for somebody.
Yeah, like, I know a lot of the best MCs I've ever heard are people you've never heard of, freestyling with them for hours in an apartment, and nobody will ever hear what I heard, but I'm like,
that's good.
I'm just like, yeah, like, I've never heard anybody, like, my boy Reason in Grand Junction, me and that cat used to freestyle for hours. We pull out the dictionary, just like, it was just a brain, it was insane. Yeah. And you start getting like these like chills in your brain. Like, you start like, I don't know. Another homie of mine, Dr. Ossify, I've been listening to Dr. Ossify for years. He's not known, but like the dope thing about him is like that cat can. His music, like I can listen to it for years and I don't get tired of it. It's really strange. It's like, yeah, it's
Dr. Ossify?
Dr. Ossify. It's my
How do you spell that?
doctor, of course, and then Ossify. Yeah, he's one of my favorite artists musically. But he's not on TV. Or Googling him probably wouldn't get much results. But,
Really?
Yeah, but he's insane.
All right.
But as far as like the most famous, like I've always liked KRS-One. I think his best years of like, as far as like production selection are behind him. He's kind of lost his way in that regard, honestly. Like a lot of times he wraps up beats. I'm just like, dude, what are you picking this beat for? Skill-wise, Eminem's super talented, but I think Eminem is like, he's spiritually, he hit like a growth stunt in his 20s, and he can't move past his ego. Because like to me, like a vocalist or not just a rapper, anybody that's like, you don't want to hear just somebody speaking to you from their point of view of just their ego. If that's all I'm hearing from you, it's like I just eventually repel it. Okay. And that doesn't mean that I don't think you're good.
Right.
It's just like I think with the true, like you get true gold with lyricism if your soul's in it, and maybe a touch your ego, so you have that confidence or whatever. But like true art comes from the soul. And if your art ain't coming from the soul and sometimes from a humble place or from a vulnerable place, or just like I've made music from the point of view of my ego, and I've also made music where I felt God there or something, and it wasn't even, I felt like it wasn't my ego talking, it was just like I felt blessed to even be an instrument of saying these things.
Yeah.
One time I felt that type of feeling was I made a song called God's Hands for my cousin who died, and I never felt that we were recording a song. It came so natural to me. I didn't have to go to a studio or think about it. I just had a microphone in my living room and I just recorded this song, and to this day, like people in my family, I still get messages about that song. And I also have songs that are probably, maybe some people might think are better. That was one of the only times I felt like skill meet spirit perfectly blended, and then
The synergy.
yeah,
That's beautiful.
And that's
Did you write that song quickly?
yeah.
Isn't it weird how sometimes it's like when you let go, you're able to let go. It's like it just comes so easy, and and then sometimes you're sitting there racking your brain over something, and you spend too much time on it. And at the end, you're like, that was
and a lot of times
not my best work.
Yeah, and a lot of time MCs or artists they get too much in the competitive side of it and think, oh, like are other MCs going to be impressed by my punchlines and my wordplay? And when you do that, next thing you know, you just end up trying to say too much, and it might take away from the human element of just being relatable.
That's kind of what I think about that too a lot. I think about intention. Like if your intention isn't in line with anything really in your life, whether it's your art or your music or whatever your business, if your intentions aren't in line, then it just doesn't seem to ever want to work out for you. But once you let your ego go and let your intention be the guide, and you do it for the right purposes, then everything just kind of comes easy. And that's a beautiful thing. So I think that's exactly what you're talking about.
You said it better than me right there, brother, because like if you're going to make a song with the intention of I'm going to make it big,
right,
that song's going to probably suck.
Well, if you go by your career, I'm going to make it big, then it's probably going to suck. You know what I mean? It's really like your whole intention has to guide every move that you make. It's like you get more from giving than you do from receiving in some ways. You know what I mean? It's just the way that the universe kind of balances itself out. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.